Madam Chair, whenever you're ready. Yes, ma'am.
Please, roll call.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Jim Anderson. Commissioner Roger Anderson. Excuse. Vice Chair Joe Clark. Here. Commissioner Justin Cummings. Excuse. Commissioner Fred Healy. Commissioner Manu Cody. Chair Rochelle Lather.
Present.
Alternate Commissioner Kimberly DeSerpa. Alternate Commissioner Lonnie Faulkner. Alternate Commissioner John Hunt. Here. Alternate Commissioner Eduardo Montesino. Here. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick reminder to members of the public. We are conducting this meeting under a hybrid model, meaning members of the public have the option to join us either virtually or in person. For those that would like to provide comments to the commission on any agenda item, they'll have up to 3 minutes. For those attending in the audience, they'll go to the podium and state their name. For those joining us virtually, if they click on the reactions tab, they can raise their hand. And for anybody joining us via conference call, they can press *9 and they'll raise their hand. We'll let them know when they have 1 minute left and when their time is up. Right now, we have all commissioners in person. So, Madam Chair, a voice vote would be appropriate for any items that require commission action. With that being said, that concludes my summary of this meeting process. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? We had the same. So now we're at the adoption of minutes. So, do you have any other questions? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Approval and second.
So we got a motion by Jim Anderson, second by Commissioner Coney.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. We can move on to the next one, oral communications. Opportunity for the public to provide comments on items that are not on today's agenda. Anything online? I don't see them in the audience.
No one from the audience, and I don't see any hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next agenda item. Special presentation. Opportunity for the commission to receive special presentations from local, regional, or state agency. It looks like there's a LAFCO update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Typically, this commission gets some guest appearances throughout the years, and this time we are lucky to have Michelle McIntyre, who is the LAFCO Executive Director, to give you an update on what's happening with LAFCO. As you know, we've been talking about these for the last couple of months of, let's just say, a potential renaissance of LAFCO. They've been struggling the last couple of months of regaining trust with the membership LAFCOs, and they've been very successful in moving forward in providing and reinforcing the fact that this agency is a resource for member LAFCOs. And under Ms. Michelle's leadership, we've seen some progress. So instead of hearing your staff give the update, we're lucky to have Ms. Michelle here in person to kind of give you a summary of what's been happening with LAFCO, the recent achievements, and what's to come. So with that, I'll defer to Ms. McIntyre.
Hello, Chair and Commissioners. As Joe said, is this?
I think so.
Okay, yeah. Just want to make sure. As Joe mentioned, my name is Michelle McIntyre. I'm the new Executive Director for LAFCO. I think a couple of days ago was month number 4 on the job, so fairly new. Before coming to LAFCO, I was a LAFCO executive officer with Placer County for a number of years. And then prior to Placer County, I was at Solano LAFCO for, I believe, 16 years. And Solano County before that. In fact, I still live in Solano County, so not too far away from you, so it wasn't a huge drive for me to come down here, but I'm happy to be here, happy to work for LAFCO. And so I wanted to let you know what we've been working on. Well, the board has been working on, because they instituted a lot of these changes as well as the membership even before I came on board. So some of the changes date back to July 2025 was really when a lot of the major reforms started happening. And then some of you may have attended the conference, and so there was a membership vote to change the bylaws at that time. And then a couple of weeks ago, we had another membership vote to make some additional changes to the bylaws. So I'll go over those changes. One of the things that the membership voted on on the 23rd of February was that the executive officers are now eligible to run for a seat on the board. As you know, last October at the conference, the regional officers such as Joe Serrano became voting members of the board, but that was really just like a stepping stone, if you will, to the larger, the bigger overhaul, which occurred and passed not that, just a few days ago. So what that means going forward is that, again, executive officers are eligible to run. The regional officers will now go back, starting in October of 2026, will go back to wearing their regional officer hats. Currently they wear dual hats. They're both a voting board member and regional officers. And so in kind of a weird way, Joe is both my boss and also my staff. So but again, this was a temporary step, and it was to just ensure that we made a lot of positive changes in the meantime. And so again, a lot of the changes went back to last year. So some of the changes that they made, I'm just going to list them because there were a lot. And what I've realized, because I was a member for 20 plus years, a LAFCO member, both with Solano and Placer. And as a member, I assumed that the state association already had all of these policies in place. But what I've come to realize is when LAFCO was first formed, shortly after, the Cortese Knox Hertzberg, back then it was something else. It was a bunch of volunteers, and back then, it was staffed by county planning, executive, directors or planning directors, etc. And so, it was really a volunteer that grew, and maybe a lot of those things were not formalized. And that worked out well until it didn't, right? For decades, really. And so some of these things are like, wow, that didn't exist. And so just the board self-evaluation, getting that feedback from the member LAFCOs as well as the staff and associate members that wasn't there, which they've now instituted. They've instituted orientation, mandatory orientation for new board members. So even before they run for a seat, I meet with them to let them know exactly what they're getting into, because we are a working board, or our board is a working board. Everyone is on at least one committee, and they're part of the conference planning and part of all of the work that goes into LAFCO, because at the end of the day, currently it's only staff with one full-time employee, me. So again, there's that expectation that they will be a working board member, and that they are no longer representing just their LAFCO or even just their region. They're representing the interests of every LAFCO in the state. So we talked about the regional officers being voting board members. One of the things that they've also instituted is that the rotation of the board goes to the region, goes with the region, so that there's predictability, and an opportunity for everyone to move up, if you will, the officer rotation. So the board code of ethics, again, another one where you think, gosh, you didn't have those things. But so having that codified, I think, will help, as well as a communication plan. And one of the things that we've also done is really re-energized, if you will, the legislative committee. There was a push to remove that committee, but legislation is a third of what the core services that LAFCO offers. So anyway, that's I think that's on my next slide with the Ledge Committee. But also just going back to number 4, again, we with me on board, this is the first time in a very, very long time. I don't remember how many directors ago where we didn't have a former LAFCO staff. We had our last 3 directors were clerk of the boards. So not exactly very new to LAFCO, but they weren't like in the weeds doing annexations, consolidations, and so anyway, that's one thing that has changed. And between myself as well as the regional officers being, on the board, working with the board, where we have that experience, right? That on the ground experience that maybe the LAFCO board didn't have before. And then so the education and professional development, another cornerstone other than legislation of LAFCO, which as you may know, Joe has he's really been our champion for our online university classes, the LAFCO U. And so we had, it says 100 plus participants, but the last count was 112. It kept increasing until the very last minute, even after we closed the registration. And that's really Joe's baby from the conception. He ran the meeting and, at the conference, and then of course with the LAFCO U. So we're back with the 201. I looked, this was a few days ago, and so the number of attendees may have increased since then, but we had 30 already, so no pressure or anything, Joe. And then the other thing that we've been working on is the staff workshop. And I got an email, this was last night, from the hotel because we're down to just 23 open rooms, which last year, because of all the turmoil, as you can imagine, we only had 80 attendees. It was 82, and that's really, really low. And so I was like, well, we usually get like 110 is our norm. So I wanted to split the baby, and I signed up for 100 rooms, and I think we are going to need more. And and I think it'll be a higher attendance than usual. So anyway, super excited about all the education and networking opportunities that we have again at LAFCO that, really frankly, during COVID and even after COVID, I felt like we really lost that. So things are going well, and everything's steady. And so I wanted to report that to you, and also thank you for sticking with us. And if there's anything I can let my board know, including Joe here, I would be happy to take back your comments, feedback, concerns, etc.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle. I'll just add that one thing that Michelle brought back to LAFCO is this built-in trust. So as she mentioned, she's been a former LAFCO employee for over 21 years. So we all know Michelle. And so when she took this role, she already had the backing of the majority, if not all, the executive officers and staff because we've grown with her. I've known her since I started with LAFCO 18 years ago. So that you can't, learn that trust. It's already built in. So that alone has helped CalAFCO regain that trust from the membership, and she's been able to really spearhead these efforts. As you may know, when we last talked about the Cal LAFCO updates, 8 LAFCOs decided not to renew their membership. It's my understanding that they're thinking about coming back. And that just shows the leadership that Ms. Michelle has done in a short period of time, 4 months. And just a quick reminder, Chair, Roger Anderson is currently on the Cal LAFCO board, your staff as the regional officer. I was appointed as a board member. So we have, again, out of everything that's happening right now with Cal LAFCO, Santa Cruz LAFCO has really stepped forward to be part of the solution. And so that there's like a silver lining. Like we've been able to really step up and provide assistance. And we're starting to see the fruits of our labor. So I just want to extend my appreciation to Ms. Michelle, give you an update to the board, and then both of us are happy to answer any questions.
Okay, at this time, I'll open the floor to public comment or public. No? Okay,
No,
then
ma'am.
we'll move it to the commission, close the public comments and open the floor. Discussion.
Are there any outstanding requests of the LAFCOs that left for them to rejoin? Are there any issues that have been identified?
Good question. I'll start and then you can add to it. So the last couple of months, we've really made some improvements. We updated the bylaws and policies. We now have more representation of the memberships on the board because now the 4 regional officers are representing the memberships directly as staff. And as Ms. Michelle noted, we recently changed the bylaws again so that all executive officers are eligible to run on the seat. The intent here not to take over the board or get elected officials off. It's just to give an additional option for regions. So to answer your question, there was like a checklist of what we heard, the concerns from memberships of the reason why they're losing trust from the state organization. And so we've been going through each one. I like to say that we have met those concerns. There's still areas of improvement. There's still other topics that we've been discussing, like for example, the due structure. It's been over a decade that it's been reviewed. Some member LAFCOs have asked, can we revisit that and see does it make sense in today's world? So again, that's CalAFCO is now being proactive. So to answer your question, I think we've been able to address the majority of the concerns, but I think there's still some that we are currently working on.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I would agree. It's really the dues that's outstanding, as far as the issues that I've heard from not just, the non-members, but also, the members. And it's not necessarily that the dues are too high. In fact, I haven't heard that at all. It really because dues are based on population, and there's a cap. So it's based on the county population, and the cap is at 750,000, and anyone or any county that is above 700,000, they're at the top tier. And so you'll have counties like, Ventura, Fresno, Sacramento, which are all around that 700 to maybe 1 million, paying the same dues as LA with 11 million. And so it doesn't really, and I agree, maybe, it made sense, a decade ago to base it on county population, but that doesn't necessarily tie into, it doesn't really affect your workload and the bandwidth of your LAFCO. And so there's been a lot of ideas. Again, we're finishing out a couple of things this spring, the workshop, and we really need to get a handle on our financial reportings, and because they're due to the IRS. And so I wanted to finish that this month before I tackled, the dues, or at least put that, not that I'm going to do all the work, but just that spearheading that effort. But yeah, we've heard a lot of positive and good feedback on all the changes that have been made, both from members and non-members. And now it's just really the dues.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, then we can move on to the next item. Which is public hearing. First we have Monroe Avenue Drive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a short presentation. We received an application from a single landowner last May, and this is involving the Santa Cruz County Sanitation District. So we're looking at a single parcel, 1 acre. And we did a full analysis, which is included in your agenda packet, but I just want to give you the key summaries or the key findings. First off is the landowner was the applicant, so we have 100% landowner consent. The subject parcel has a single family home, and the purpose of this annexation is to discontinue their aging septic system and connect them to a more sustainable sewer infrastructure. So that's the intent of this annexation. Thank you, Ms. Michelle. The second thing is, the district has indicated that they are willing and capable of providing services. So again, the county manages this sewer district and they've provided a will serve letter to the landowner. We have a copy of it indicating that they're interested in providing service as long as they meet the conditions that they outlined in the letter. Also, that the county board of supervisors adopted a property tax exchange agreement, again, reinforcing the fact that the district is in support of this annexation. The third thing is that this proposed annexation is consistent with LAFCO laws, with our local policies, and it also is consistent with the sphere boundary. A sphere is a planning tool, which indicates that we meaning LAFCO and this commission, determined that the Santa Cruz County Sanitation District is the most logical service provider to this particular parcel. So there's consistency there as well. You'll note, and you can see in the map, I can just zoom in really quick. This area right here, we zoom in, there's two existing extraterritorial service agreements. So this commission approved those a couple years ago, allowing these landowners to receive services without being annexed. And the reason why is they were having health and safety issues. They were having failing septic systems. So we were able to expedite the process by approving these ESAs. We initially talked with the county and the landowner, maybe annexing those two parcels as well. But that would require an update on the map and legal description, an update to the property tax exchange agreement, support from those affected landowners, and that would have delayed this process. So we compromised and we added a condition that these two parcels should be annexed within the next 2 years. And it's my understanding that the county staff has expressed interest in doing a blanket annexation in the near future to address some boundary discrepancies. So I think that we will be able to align these two parcel annexations with the bigger idea of cleaning up the boundaries. So with all that being said, staff is recommending that this commission approve this annexation of the single parcel to the sewer district by adopting the proposed resolution. Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. This time we are open for the floor for public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Steinberg. I did have a question when I looked at the map, and I understand that LAFCO seeks to not create islands of service, and it seemed like this could be considered an island within the area. So if you can speak to that, that'd be great. I understand the need there. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. There's no other comments. I will note that, yes, the law or prohibits the formation of islands when it comes to city annexations, where this is dealing in a district annexation, but Ms. Becky did bring up a good point, and that's the reason why we included that condition to coordinate with county staff to annex these two ESAs. So that's the intent. We want to have logical boundaries, and so we'll be pursuing that in the near future.
Well, I'll close the floor for public comments and if commissioners have any questions.
You make the comment, the most logical provider, other than septic system, if they are the only provider possible, right?
That is correct.
Questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that,
Wilson made the motion. Lonnie Koenig, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we'll move on to the next item. City of Capitola sphere boundary adjustment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another short presentation, hopefully. So back in 2022, this commission conducted a number of service reviews. One of them was involving the city of Capitola. So as you may know, the city of Capitola was formed back in 1949, and the commission at that time in 1975 adopted a sphere boundary, as you can see on your screen, which goes beyond the city limits. So as part of the 2022 service review, we asked the city, does this sphere boundary accurately reflect your city's future? Do you see yourself annexing these territories? And based on our staff analysis, this sphere has been in place since 1980. That was the last time it was amended, and nothing has changed. The last annexation to the city was back in 1984. So this has been in place for over 40 years, 4 decades. So does this really reflect your future? So we asked the city as part of that report to analyze the sphere boundary. So what transpired after that report was adopted by this commission? The city decided to have an outside consultant analyze their sphere, and they hired RSG. So I'm just going to show, this is the information I just mentioned. So RSG looked at the areas, and they identified 2 study areas, the North study area and Pleasure Point study area. And based on their analysis, there wasn't really any financial incentives or service impacts that would warrant whether the city would annex territory or not. So the city received and filed that information and deferred to LAFCO. Based on this information, what do you think is best? So LAFCO staff coordinated with city staff, and we determined if we remove Treasure Point set area, and then this little area here that's also their sphere, so to only include that north study area, which the city staff indicated that seems reasonable. That's something that we may explore in the future. So that is what's being proposed to you today, is a sphere reduction to only include a smaller area based on the findings from this RSG report, based on the feedback we got from city staff. I want to make it clear that sphere boundaries are a planning tool. That doesn't mean that annexation is automatic. It doesn't mean that the city is required to provide services to this area or to annex this area. It is meant to show that if the city were to expand, this is the most logical area. And now, after 42 years, our sphere boundary reflects their potential future based on findings, data, and recommendations from an outside consultant. So for that being said, staff is recommending that the commission approve this sphere amendment by adopting the proposed draft resolution. And Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Are there any comments from the public? Seeing none,
There is a request online, and we have the city clerk, Miss Chloe, who raised her. So I'm going to ask her to unmute herself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Let's see. Let's try that again. Go ahead, Miss Chloe.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Chloe from the City of Capitola.
So I can hear, but I don't think the rest of the commission is. So can Miss Chloe, if you can state your comments, and I'll reiterate to the board.
Thank you. I'm so sorry about that. Yes, hi, this is Chloe from the City of Capitola. I just wanted to say that not only do we support the staff recommendation, but that Joe was such a pleasure to work with. We enjoyed the process and think that this amended sphere is more suitable at this time. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chloe. So Ms. Chloe just supported staff's recommendation, and she just extended her appreciation to LAFCO staff on this process. And she's happy to answer any questions. But again, city staff supports this proposed amendment.
thank you. So that's it, right?
Yeah.
Now I can see it. Are there any questions from the board?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. So in some ways this report is disappointing. I will tell you that as the representative for these study areas, and much the city of Capitola and county government, municipal services, which the county, in this area is responsible for providing, consistently get short shrift. We underinvest chronically in our roads and our parks. And so city-related functions, particularly in the infrastructure, are consistently underinvested because the county government in general is fairly underfunded because of the tax cut. So I have often thought it would make a lot more sense if Live Oak, areas like Pleasure Point, like this, were part of a city, whether that's the city of Santa Cruz or the city of Capitola. And I believe that was the original vision, and that's why you have city of Santa Cruz zip codes going all the way up to 30th Avenue. It's pretty shocking to see these financial numbers that, basically with the annexed areas, the city of Capitola would almost double in size, and yet the increase in revenues would only be 17%. And a lot of that is, granted, the city of Capitola has a pretty high density of commercial businesses, but a lot of that also goes back to the property tax formula. The fact that city of Capitola can only get 6% of the assessed value or of the property taxes for these newly annexed properties. I'm just curious, first of all, like, how would that even happen, right? Like today, you look at all the different entities that get a portion of the property tax and the area in question. Does everyone then take as reduction if the city of Capitola were to come in to make room for that 6%, so to speak?
So really good question, Commissioner. So hypothetically, if we were to get an annexation, let's say the North Study area, one of the steps is to have the county and the city negotiate a property tax exchange agreement, which is required under any change of organization. And that is a negotiation process. So let's say there's $100,000 being collected for property taxes, just because it's easy numbers for me. So the question is, how much of that $100,000 that's being collected is going to get transferred over to the city of Capitola? Is it going to be the whole 100,000? Is it going to be a 50-50 split, 60-40? But to answer your question, Commissioner, so now that you add a new player in the mix, that means everyone else will get a little bit less of that piece of the pie. And that's part of the property tax exchange agreement, is to determine this new entity that is not going to be providing services, how much funds, if any, are they going to receive? And because there is no master property exchange agreement with the city of Capitola, it would be a negotiations, but that would be key. And in some cases, we determined that property taxes isn't enough to offset the cost to provide services to these areas. So then we have to look for other revenue streams. And that's something, again, it's case by case. So that's one component, is negotiations between the county and the city of how much is it being collected and how much will be transferred over.
Okay, thank you. I'm supportive of the recommended actions today. I just said the sphere hasn't been tested in 40 years, so we'll go ahead and do that. But I do think this points to a more fundamental issue, just with the way the property taxes are portioned and the way the services in our county are managed.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think my question's aligned similarly with Commissioner Koenig, which is, as the county only gets 13.5 cents per property tax dollar. And I'm thinking in terms of sphere of influence, is anything changing? Actually not annexed currently, but we do need to think about these issues that Tony mentioned, that there is a gross imbalance in terms of how the county sees. And I too thought that we were going to move in the direction of considering annexing more of Live Oak Capitola into the region. So I'm curious.
Yes, so you're correct. A sphere amendment changes nothing with the current level of services or how services are being provided. It's simply a planning tool. That being said, this sphere is not set in stone. So if there is support of annexations that are not included within the sphere boundary, that's still an option. And we can amend the sphere. For example, hypothetically were to consider annexation of Pleasure Point, which right now we're proposing to be excluded, but that could be added back into the sphere. So this is meant to just provide a better glimpse of what the city of Capitola's service area may be. But these questions that we're hearing are the type of questions that need to be answered when we do receive an application to annex any territory involving the city of Capitola. So good points. And this is something where, at the very least, we're amending their sphere, but more importantly, it reinforces LAFCO's role with the cities in building that working relationship so that the city knows that LAFCO is not a threat. LAFCO is really being mindful of their thought process of their future. And then we can have these other discussions later down the road, and LAFCO can be the facilitator when it comes to city, county discussions about potential boundary changes in the future.
I'm gonna say, I believe the same conversation happened with either the MSR or Capitola, but I believe it was over some parcels that weren't serviced because of the water district.
Correct. And so the city of Santa Cruz provides water services to areas within the sphere boundary. And so that was a question of how do we better reflect service delivery right now? So that was a question that we raised as part of the review as well.
Thank you, Chair. First, a short question. It looks like the western boundary is Rodeo Gulch. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was the question?
The western boundary of the proposed annexation areas is Rodeo Gulch. Is that drainage there? It didn't align with streets or anything, so I thought, looks like, anyway. Okay, so my main question is, the finding was made or proposed that it was not logical or feasible to add Pleasure Point, but it was to add the northern area. And when I looked through the numbers, it wasn't obvious to me what the distinction between those two study areas was.
So that's where LAFCO asked city staff of what areas do you want to keep? And so there was even a thought of like, what if the sphere was coterminous with the city limits? So exactly the same as the city limits. But I think what I heard from, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the city, but what LAFCO heard is they do want to have areas in their sphere, and it just seemed logical, at least from the city's staff's point of view, of keeping the north study area. So that I was mindful of that. I defer to their suggestions, and that's why I'm proposing that area to stay within their sphere.
But not Pleasure Point.
Based on what I heard from city staff, I would exclude that, correct? And Vice Chair Clark, if you want to add any comments on that.
Yes, it's not that we didn't want to. Pleasure Point. It's just that we said nothing's been done in so long. And I don't know if everybody understood what it would look like if we're to annex those areas. Negotiate. What can you answer it? What would it look like if city was take over Pleasure Point and the North Zone?
Yeah, so that again, based on the findings, it would be a significant shift in their population, maybe almost doubling their current population. So that would trigger a look at its governance structure of having zone districts. So there's a lot that kind of trickles down when it comes to exploring these proposed annexations, the fiscal impacts, what's it gonna, how much is it gonna cost to provide services to these areas? You know, what's the different zonings, because as part of any city annexation, the city of Capitola would need to update their general plan and pre-zone. So there's a lot of factors that come into play when it comes to, and I have Miss Chloe, who has her hand raised, so I'm gonna let her answer a little bit more. Get me off the hot seat. Whether or not you can hear, that's gonna be another question. Miss Chloe, you've been unmuted.
Can you put it up to the mic?
Thank you. Hi, yes. You can hear me, at least, Joe, correct?
No, unfortunately, I can hear you, but
Okay.
it's very low.
Well, you can just say not even getting into the financial and the double of population, but as a born and raised local, I think that there is a very strong and wonderful self-identification as Pleasure Point that is very autonomous to not being part of the city of Capitola that we were mindful of, whereas potentially some of the north area, you can even see with the keyholes, the boundary there is kind of odd. And so eventually cleaning that up may make more sense just from like a community identity standpoint, if you think that that's helpful to provide some of that background.
Perfect, thank you, Ms. Chloe. So what, just a quick summary of her comments, she indicated that based on their kind of outreach with the Pleasure Point area, it sounds like some of those residents see this as not part of the city of Capitola, and they wanted to be mindful of those comments of their kind of
Its own
identification in the county. So that's one of the reasons why they felt comfortable with keeping the north area within their sphere, but excluding Pleasure Point. And again, I apologize for the technical issues, but this summarizing Ms. Chloe's comments.
Are there any other questions? If not, do we have a motion?
Recommended action.
Thank you, that.
The reverse time? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, we will move on to policies and procedures handbook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a quick update. Every year, this commission reviews the comprehensive handbook that identifies guidelines through policies and procedures. This year, we're proposing 3 amendments. One is to clarify staff's endorsement inquiries. As you know, our analyst is a former elected official, former mayor of the city of Watsonville, and from time to time, he always gets questions of, can you endorse me for this upcoming election? And it puts him in an awkward situation because LAFCO is this quasi-legislative organization, but we always want to remain unbiased and neutral, especially when it comes to any type of political election. So this is something that we worked with legal counsel and staff to identify policies, just to make it clear that if we get these inquiries, we can say, sorry, good luck, but we're gonna stay neutral. And now we can have a policy to help us back that up. Because sometimes, I don't want to speak on behalf of Francisco, but they're like, oh, you just don't want to endorse me. And that's not the case. He just wants to remain neutral. So that's one policy that we want to include. The second one is just to quickly update our salary schedule to better reflect of current practices. And the third one is something that the commission directed staff to work on is what do we do when we receive requests to reduce or waive or defer allocation funds. So this stems directly from a request we got from the Pajaro Valley Healthcare District a couple months ago, back in October. This commission decided to defer payment until the next fiscal year. But that raises the question of what do we do if we get another similar question? So you directed staff to work with legal counsel on developing a policy. Your legal counsel worked directly on providing this language, and now we're presenting this to be part of the proposed policies and procedures amendments. So, Madam Chair, that concludes our presentation. Staff is recommending that you approve these proposed amendments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. So I will open the floor to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Crystal ball with the information. So I will return the comment to I'll return the item to the commission and for discussion. John?
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the apportionment deferral, the policy doesn't have any criteria to use to determine whether the deferral should be granted. And so I imagine there's a benefit to that, and that it leaves it up to the
Commission's discretion.
decide based on whatever they've feels appropriate. So that's that correct?
Yes, so the intent is to acknowledge that we may get these inquiries, here's a proposed guidelines, but we want to let defer to the commission's full discretion on what type of action you want to provide.
Thank you.
Any no other questions or comments? Is there a motion? Maybe somebody new?
I'll move.
Thank you. Did you get that?
Yes, I did. So it was a motion by Vice Chair Clark and seconded by Commissioner Chance.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So, and nobody is opposed. Okay, so we will move on to other business. Atkinson Lane, Brewington Avenue, ESA time.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next three agenda items should be fairly quickly. So this first one is regarding a extraterritorial service agreement that this commission approved back in 2021. This involved a affordable housing project. And this commission approved that ESA with the condition that the parcel in question should be annexed into the city once the final occupancy was reached. So it was my understanding that it reached full occupancy in October of last year. So that triggered that deadline of submitting an application to LAFCO. The landowner and the city both agreed that we need a little bit more time before we start putting staff and resources to this proposed annexation. So they requested that we get a 6 months extension. So staff under local, our current policies has the authority to approve those extensions, but for full transparency, I wanted to bring it up to the commission for discussion for transparency and request that we grant that 6 months time extension. It's my understanding that the landowner and the city are planning on submitting an application to LAFCO as early as April, so next month. So I don't think we're going to need the full 6 months, but again, this is something that I wanted to bring to the commission. Staff is recommending that we approve this time extension with the understanding that we will be processing this annexation soon. So, Madam Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'm opening the floor to public comment. Are there any members of the public interested in speaking on this item?
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Becky Steinberger. I've watched the project and I thought it was interesting that it was split between city property and county property. So what input do we have from the county on this process? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Becky, and I'll just answer it. Once we receive this application, we'll be coordinating with a number of affected agencies and interested agencies, including the county. As we talked about earlier, there's going to be a need for a property tax exchange agreement. Also, we need to look at if any other parcels should be part of this annexation. So there's going to be direct coordination with the county and their different departments on this proposed annexation that will hopefully get started next month.
Thank you. I will return the floor to the commissions. I always want to say board. To the commission for discussion. Any questions? Jim Anderson.
My favorite topic, Atkinson Lane. As I remember that we made a condition of annexation to the city of Watsonville since they get all their services, city of Watsonville. And at the time, I believe there was no city manager for the city, but the assistant city manager was at our meeting. And they said they didn't have the money to do it. So Mid-Peninsula is the person putting this together. And we asked if they would pay for the annexation cost. And they agreed to that. And it's been, it's just gone back and forth and they've been reluctant to do it ever since. At one point in time, when they had a short-term city manager, he asked LAFCO if we would loosen the restrictions on Manabiao, that they would go ahead with annexation. And that wasn't met with from the LAFCO board because it was kind of a quid pro
Mhm.
quo. Anyway, so I just wonder if they're really gonna go through with this, because we've been bounced back and forth on this particular subject for years. This was back in Pat McCormick's days.
Sure. Yes, so the answer is yes. So we have a condition as part of the ESA. We've been coordinating with the landowner, which is Mid-Penn, as well as the city, is staff's understanding that Mid-Penn will be the applicant. They'll be subject to all the requirements, including, but not limited to, the filing fees and map and legal. So it is LAFCO staff's understanding that yes, an application will be submitted. And we've been in coordination these last couple of months, so that is our understanding that it's gonna move forward. And regarding Manaus, I think that's what you referenced. As part of this annexation, the LAFCO staff is not planning on including any conditions that does not affect this particular area. To me, like, that does not seem that is appropriate for this discussion. Maybe it was considered years ago, but as you know, your LAFCO staff is by the book, so I'm gonna look at this proposed annexation, any parcels that are surrounding that, it may be, that should be annexed, but that's gonna be the extent of this proposal.
Any other questions or comments? Chief the body.
Hmm.
I see none, so, do we have a motion?
I recommend the action for a 6-month extension.
A second.
Got that?
Bless you. Yes, so we have a motion by Vice Chair Clark and Commissioner by, second by Commissioner John.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So we'll move on to the next item, which is legislative update.
Just quickly, Madam Chair, there's only a few bills that we presented in the staff report, but we're gonna give a more deep dive analysis at our next meeting or in May, when we have more, a better understanding of LAF related bills. So this is a receive and file staff report, no commission action is required, but we're happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I will move on to the next item. Part of no motion. That is fire-related projects.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Another quick presentation. So this is something that your staff has been working on a number of fire-related projects. I just wanted to briefly note that your staff is working on finalizing a draft version of the countywide fire report. The last one that we did was back in 2021, so we're required to do another one every 5 years. So that's going to analyze all the fire agencies in our county. This commission did form an ad hoc committee with representatives, Commissioner Montesino, Supervisor DeSerpa, and Commissioner Jim Anderson. Staff is going to coordinate with them soon and have a meeting with them sometime this month to kind of go over the draft findings and recommendations of that report and see if they provide us any feedback before we finalize the draft version and present it to the respective fire agencies for their review and input before we deem it complete and present it to the commission in June. The other note is your staff is coordinating with PV Fire. As you know, they have a reorganization application on file to dissolve themselves and be annexed into CSA 48. Your staff will be presenting at their first educational workshop, which is scheduled to be on Tuesday, March 31st at 6 p.m. It's going to be an in-person event where we will explain to the community why this reorganization is happening, what's the impact when it comes to finances and services, what's the benefits, and more importantly, answer any questions that they have. So this is going to be a series of events to ensure that the residents are fully aware of this proposal and its benefits and the reason why it's happening. So your staff's going to be presenting on March 31st. Madam Chair, those are the two key updates I wanted to provide, but I'm happy to answer any questions. And this is an information item, so no action is required.
Is there anyone from the public interested in speaking on this item?
Thank you, Becky Steinbrenner. I'm looking forward to the informational meeting on March 31st, Pajaro Valley Fire. I am constituent of CSA 48, Santa Cruz County Fire. And I've been examining the CSA 48 2020 assessments, and there are so many errors. And I've been pointing them out to Director of General Services, Ms. Finley. And some have been resolved, but some have not. So I would respectfully like to ask that part of the LAFCO report include a recommendation for a full audit of the CSA 48, especially the 2020, that's more complex. There needs to be an audit because there are many errors in the assessments and a real lack of continuity in terms of how parcels are assessed and the amount. And the state parcels are not being assessed at all. And that was not supposed to be that way. There's no exemption in the special benefit assessment, Prop 218 ballot assessment procedures. So please include an audit recommendation for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Becky. There is no other requests, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'll close public comments and move to the floor. The floor to the commission. Anybody interested in speaking on this item? Okay, it was informational only, so we can move on.
We did not receive any written correspondence, so we can move on to the next
Okay,
item.
so the next one is press articles.
And this is just a standard agenda. We identify any articles of interest that's related to LAFCO or to this commission. But again, information, I know no action is required.
Next item is commissioner's business. Is there anyone on the commission that has something to share? Seeing none, we can move on to the next item, which is closed session.
And Madam Chair, just a reminder, closed sessions are held when there are certain matters that should not be discussed in a public forum, including but not limited to personnel evaluations. So as you know, this commission has a personnel committee. They evaluated staff's performance during the last calendar year in 2025. They met with staff. They provided a memo to this commission identifying their recommendations. So today you will have a discussion about staff's performance evaluation, and your legal counsel, Josh, will be facilitating those discussions. The closed session will be immediately behind you in the conference room, which there is coffee still available for you. Your staff and members of the public will stay in this room and we'll reconvene once you're done with your discussion. So at this point, I'll defer to you, Chair, to enter closed session.
Yes.
Madam Chair, thank you. I'd like to extend my apologies to you and my colleagues. Due to another scheduling matter, I won't be able to attend closed session today. I want to make sure that does not jeopardize a quorum in closed session.
It does not.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we ask for public comment before the closed session?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there any public comment for the closed session? None? Okay, so now we're going to turn to closed session.
Josh.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Hey, Fred, I just want to mention how like a year and a half ago, in Moscow, you spoke at the meeting of the new big fund.
Just want to go close the door from the kitchen.
They didn't know.
We've reconvened from closed session. There are no reportable items. And so I will adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.